And we are live. Okay, welcome everybody to another episode of the Cure of Live Stream. Today we are talking about prediction markets on the back of the recently released report in collaboration with Dune and with the support of a lot of our major partners and platforms active in the space, such as Polymarket and Kalshi. Today we have a great group of people with us to discuss about and hopefully understand better what's happening in the space of prediction markets. So today with us we have Frederick, the CEO and co-founder of Dune, Primo, senior data engineer at Polymarkets, and Ultra, which is now leading the new crypto growth initiative at Kalshi. So with that context, then we can get started. Just first of all, a very brief summary on the current state of the market. Prediction markets, for anybody that is just starting to get into the topic, are not new. They've been around for a very long time. But what has changed is that in the past 2 years, we have seen an enormous explosion of the prediction market space on the back of regulatory clarity in the US, especially. And so today we have here the participants that have actually been driving that change, and we're going to be exploring with them, and unveiling what can we do with prediction markets. Okay, so maybe just to get started, maybe we can jump in with Frederick. Frederick, it would be great if you give a quick intro to yourself and give the audience a brief summary on what have we unveiled on the understanding of the prediction market space.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hey, I'm Frederick, CEO and co-founder of Dune. So we've been running Dune for over 7 years now, and it's been interesting to follow this part of crypto, which actually started back when I got interested personally in 2015. Augur was one of the very first projects and a prominent project on Ethereum. So it's very interesting to see how that idea has been around for a while, but how you see in tech very often, you need the timing and a few pieces and details to be right before something really, gains usage, even if conceptually you were maybe, heading in the right direction. So with this report, it's been really cool to break down, what's actually going on in the market for prediction markets. I was wondering, can I share my screen here? Maybe it's easier if we look a little bit at the report.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Actually,
I'll give it a try.
Yeah, there is a share button
Yeah.
there. Okay, fantastic.
You can see
It's
this?
the first time we do screen sharing, but
Yeah.
great.
You see this?
I can. It's I think Marina would have to accept it because I can see it's off stage. Just give me a second.
Okay. Yeah.
There you go. Now
There
it's
we
on
go.
stage.
Nice.
We can see it.
All right, perfect. So here we're looking at the report. So I think that the interesting thing here all over is, that basically the volume went from 100 million per month at the beginning of 24, the notional volume, and then to 13 billion in November, so last month. Which is an astonishing 130x growth. And I think in particular, what's interesting here is, the election, there was a big run up in volume, but nevertheless, and then it dipped, but now it's like coming back even stronger, which has been very cool to see. And, you have seen, I think many times over in crypto charts that skyrocket and then come crashing down and then never come back. And so I think this is probably a big question looming here as well. Was this like a one-time thing for the US election last year? Or was there something more sustainable and long term here? And the answer seems to be yes. So I think that's very interesting to see how the momentum has come back up even without the US election. And then I think one other stat that's interesting here is the categories. So this is between Kalshi and Polymarket, and I'm sure our fellow panelists here can talk more about it. But you can see that which categories that the different platforms have activity on is quite different. So you can see that Polymarket, is particularly strong on crypto, politics, and sort of tech and science, whereas Kalshi is strong on sports, climate and weather, economics, and financials. So you can see that there's definitely some different sort of pockets of the market that's being grabbed by these different players. So yeah, that's, I think, a little bit of backdrop of what's going on, which categories are moving. So I think that should suffice as a little bit of an intro.
Thank you, Frederick. On the back of that, I mean, and indeed, I think a lot of people that have maybe not have been hearing about prediction markets the last few years, but have not yet interacted with it directly, are not aware of really the diversity and the type of prediction markets that are the most active. So maybe, on the back of that, maybe we can jump with Primo. Primo would be great if you give a quick intro to like of your work at Polymarkets, and maybe tell a little bit the audience about the distribution of volume and markets across the platform, and where are you excited about the growth in the platform in the near future?
Yep. So I'm Primo. I'm a data engineer at Polymarket. I work a lot on our DeFi product and do data engineering for that, as well as data like dashboarding ad hocs for that. But also, as we launched in the US, doing data work for that as well. They are, two different products at the moment, and we're very excited for the US launch. And that's been a big focus. We've been very heads down that the last, since July or August, when we acquired a company and a license. So yeah, I mean, it's for the DeFi product. It's a mix, and there's a few different metrics I like to look at. There's volume. Volume's a mix of politics. You got elections. So what? Like this year, there are elections, and like for prime ministers and presidents, and in Bolivia and South Korea was a big one. I think there was a Japan prime minister election, France, like dozens. I mean, there's 200 countries, so every year there's going to be some elections. So that drives a lot of volume. And also the other metric I like to look at is like website visits, and that's not on chain, but this is something that we look at a lot internally. So volume, website visits, and open interest. So if you look across these three, like the big different categories are politics, sports, crypto, and then other like being there's some tech ones like is OpenAI going to drop a new model? We've done like culture ones like Diplo, who's an artist. Like, what's his 5K time going to be? There's a charity water thing with Mr. Beast. So like, there's this other bucket that has a lot of different ones that are more cultural, and then there's financial ones too, like earnings. So like all of these, there's like volume across all of these. There's open interest. Volume tends to be more of a mix of politics, sports, and crypto, and then other. And then open interest is more heavy on politics because those are like longer term things. Like people put money into the U.S. election for years from now, or who's going to be the nominee. So that's like more sticky, and that's not as transactional. And then like the website, other bucket of like activities, website visits, like that is heaviest for politics. Like people come to our site, like my parents, my neighbors are coming to our site to see like are the Epstein files going to get released, like newsworthy things. So that like our website activity is more like politics versus like people aren't going, my wife doesn't go to Polymarket to see if Bitcoin's going to hit 92K in December. Like that doesn't drive as much. People use our website for more of a newsstand. So that's kind of how like we look at it. Is there's different metrics and different markets drive different numbers.
Okay, maybe going on the same tangent with Ultra here from Kalshi. It would be great to get your view on what are the main markets that you guys are seeing the growth, and also if you could give us an insight into what are the user types that you see in the platform and how is this evolving through time.
Yeah, sure. By the way, hi guys. I'm Ultra. I'm managing crypto growth, an ecosystem, and builders program over at Kalshi. As you mentioned, the top categories by national volume are definitely sports, economics, and climate and weather. We've seen essentially a cultural shift since the last election in many more people being interested in prediction markets and trading them in their daily life and essentially monetizing their expertise for prediction markets. So we've seen a lot of interest from just people that want to monetize their expertise. A very interesting community that formed around Kalshi is weather traders. They built insanely cool tooling, pulling IoT data from weather station all across the U.S. and they build really cool tooling there. That's why we've seen so much growth in that category. We're going to start doing a little bit more builder highlights in 2026, but a lot of exciting stuff going on there. Sports obviously has been very, very good for our growth. We've also introduced combos a couple weeks ago, which have seen pretty good volume on our side. And then we're seeing also a lot of institutional traders wanting to hedge positions, trading economics and finance related markets, as well as market making and so on. So there's no one single profile of users that uses Kalshi. It's more so the new way to trade in a sense. So that's the cultural shift we've seen in 2025.
Let me take you on that thought, because I think for a lot of people, everybody assumes that prediction markets is predominantly retail, and that there is the use case is just trying to bet on outcomes of things. But from what you're saying, I think it's very interesting to understand how it gets used professionally for institutions as a hedging tool. If you would have to guess what percentage of the use at the moment is on macro hedging and institutional use, and also I don't know if you have any insight on has this been the case from the very beginning, or is this a new trend inside of the platform that you've seen developing in the recent months?
Yeah, I don't have direct data exactly on the split, but institutional flows are something that decided to come on board, or is definitely been growing in 2025 post elections, as you always need initial interest in prediction markets to or demand to get liquidity, and then liquidity brings more demand, and so on. It's a kind of a chicken and an egg problem that was solved in the past 2 years or so. So I would say institutional demand is definitely growing. Hard to say on the exact split. Yeah.
Okay. And so maybe, we already mentioned, this market has grown from 100 million notional to 13 billion a month at this time. What are the unlocks that you guys believe would enable this market to continue to scale further? How do we get to 100 billion of monthly notional in 2026? I don't know who wants to address it.
Yeah, for us, it's launched in the US. Like, we are entirely, like, those charts that you showed, that's DeFi. That's our DeFi product of mostly like retail, maybe skews a little crypto native, but like launched in the US, being fully regulated, having a partnership, not a partnership, ICE, a large exchange that owns the New York Stock Exchange, owns a piece of our company. Like that partnership is going to be huge. Like, when we become legal in the US and can bring on more institutionals like that, for us, that's like the biggest unlock that's there. And then the biggest unlock, I would say, on the DeFi side is like our builders program. Like, somewhere we have a builders program. We already have 50 to 60, I think, builders submitting orders to Polymarket. Most of our volume still comes from our platform, though. Like, it's a little different. Like, our platform is probably 95% of volume, and then the builders is 5%. So we don't have other people routing flow. Like, they're coming to our site and making trades there. So I think on the DeFi side, it's builders, and then on just launching in the US is going to be like big.
Just to make sure that one is clear. So when you say builders, I guess you would mean then the capacity for other companies or protocols or fintechs to then kind of like have their own UI with prediction markets that are the backer sourcing liquidity from you, correct?
Right. Yeah. Like, MetaMask integrated us, Rainbow integrated us. So there's wallets. There's Based is one of the biggest hyperliquid builders. They've integrated us. Bullpen is another hyperliquid builder. They've integrated us. So like, we're people, because we're smart contracts are on the blockchain. Anyone can build and submit orders to us. We have public APIs, and anyone can integrate us. So I think on the DeFi, that's like can be a big unlock.
Okay. What about you, Ultra? Like, what other key unlocks of growth for prediction markets you see in the year to come?
Yeah, on our side, as I mentioned, the cultural shift that, especially I think Kalshi has brought in the US, has been great for growth. We've had regulatory clarity for the past, 5 years or so, when we launched in 2021, and that's been great. For now, we're essentially growing all of the US sector, but at the same time, we enabled international users to be able to trade on Kalshi a month or so ago. So that's been pretty good and an area of growth for the future. We've had third-party tokenization toolkits create essentially tokenization infrastructure on chain for tokenized predictions. So enabling builders to tap into this tokenized prediction has been pretty cool to see. We've had also wallet integrations. I think in 2025 there was a change from people's or builders seeing prediction markets as just an app to seeing them as a layer to be built on top, and that can, I think, build great growth on that side. There's many areas of growth essentially. It's really hard to tell which one is going to prevail, but definitely cultural acceptance and institutional flows and builders will be the main driver in 2026.
Maybe Frederick, I wanted to get your take on something. So when we look at the report that we put out, there are a couple of things that stand out. At least for me, I was not an expert in this field before the research that we did together on it. One of the things that I found that I think majority of people don't know about outside of the space is really the level of accuracy of the predictions that come out of prediction markets. I mean, like I was personally very surprised to realize that prediction markets as a tool can give a much higher level of accuracy than basically any other type of economic prediction systems. And with that, so I mean, I guess I just wanted to see like if you could also elaborate a little bit on how the level of accuracy is understood within the data, and how can this unlock growth for the year to come.
Yeah, it's been really cool to see how sort of when you scientifically analyze this, you see the accuracy and then it being a lot better than other experts or polls. Again, if I can screen share, if that is allowed on stage, we can look at the report. We can see how prediction markets are essentially outperforming all other ways of predicting. And I'm an economist by education, and it's kind of astonishing how bad economists are at just predicting the future, and being just sort of all kinds of experts you have are not worth that much when you actually scrutinize it. And if you read your Nassim Taleb and whatnot, you're well aware that you should be very careful when people make predictions. And so it's super compelling to see that now we have actually sort of materially improved on sort of call it society's or humanity's ability to predict the future here, and for more things. And so to your last question also, or previous question, I think the interesting thing about prediction markets is that you get to sort of get accurate information about way more things. So just to take this chart in particular, there's prediction markets all over on the left, like lower score is better. It basically tells you, how much predictive power these various categories has. So yeah, weather forecasting, sports betting, intelligence / expert forecasting, random guess is at like, if you get to this score, then that's random guess. And then you have prediction polls and prediction polls on the last one as well. But basically, it tells you that prediction markets are knocking it out of the park, essentially, in terms of actually telling you what's going to happen. and you can see also broken down by the various prediction markets. And what's kind of interesting here is you have Kalshi down here on the left, and then Polymarket with a wider distribution. I think that there's two ways of reading this. One is the Polymarket actually have sort of higher risk, harder to predict type of events and markets, or maybe you could say Kalshi is more precise, but I don't think that is the quite right interpretation here. There are different types of markets with a different ease of predicting, if you will, across these players, and that's probably where the diff is coming from. But all over, and there's been some independent papers also verifying this. We have solid evidence that prediction markets meaningfully improve the ability to forecast, and that's great. And I want to make a broader point there also, that so many things can be helped by this. There's always this question of, is it gambling or not, and what have you, but there can be so many legitimate reasons to hedge or have exposure to various things happening. And I think the exciting thing is going to be to see like what kind of weird niches where markets do pop up that we haven't historically had, that are maybe non-obvious but that are actually useful. And I guess the crux is how much volume can be driven to more of the long tail stuff. That might be TBD, what the scale and liquidity you can get on sort of more longer tails of markets. But I think all over, this is solid evidence that this category of product is really useful and improves the world, if you will. Yeah.
When I was looking at the results of the data, I found especially very interesting that that analysis that was made in terms of the market for the Fed rates and the prediction of the Fed rates, which kind of like showed that there was lower volatility in the prediction markets than in any other type of like economic model that tried to predict what the Fed rate is going to be at the next quarter. As a trading house, for us this is very interesting because it does mean that like some of these very big macro events that typically affect the level of volatility in the market and therefore our revenue can be definitely maybe not perfectly hedged but offset by also taking positions in these markets. And so that was, at least for us, a very very kind of like interesting realization. And I mean, I believe that as more institutions start to realize this, that's also going to bring a very interesting level of adoption for the year to come. As we also believe that this is just the very beginning of the growth of the prediction markets industry. Maybe going back to Primo and Ultra, one of the things that we wanted to get your take on is really kind of like the design space of prediction markets. Like maybe I like to start with something pretty simple. I mean, like both of your platforms are permissioned systems. There is this idea going around that prediction markets could also be built as a permissionless system, a little bit similar to how like Morpho started to build permissionless money markets compared to Aave back recently. But there's a lot of conflicting ideas about the fact that this can work or not work. So I wanted to get your take, or if you have an opinion on why prediction markets today are a purely permissioned mechanism. I don't know, Primo, if you want to get started.
That's a good question. I think we have a markets team that like stands up markets and manages that. I think like liquidity and rules are the tricky parts.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, it's definitely something we're exploring, of like making it more permissionless. But we are pretty, like, our DeFi is pretty permissionless. We got open source smart contracts. People can submit orders. All of it is public and on chain. We have a resolution process that is decentralized. I think there's lots of permissionless components. I think the market, staying at the market piece, is like centralized right now. I'm not sure if I can really, like, we're exploring if there's ways to, decentralize that more. But that's a good question for the markets team. I'm just kind of like a data guy. So, yeah.
So Maybe just to also give the audience a little bit more of an insight on this, like how does the resolution mechanism for a market operate at Polymarkets? I don't know if you could elaborate a little bit on how does it work today, and how the decision making to like effectively settle the end of a market operates.
Yeah. So on our DeFi product, there's a third-party protocol called UMA, and they like resolve markets. So when an event like ends, anyone can propose a resolution, and then you can like dispute the outcome. And then if you dispute it, then there's like a voting process. But anyone can propose, and then UMA kind of resolves it. That's the main way. For what we've been doing for some crypto markets is using Chainlink as an oracle to like auto resolve markets. So we have these 15-minute markets. They're up, down crypto prices. Is Bitcoin going to go up or down in the next 15 minutes? And that's all resolved through Chainlink. For the US product, I mean, it would be totally different. Like that's a regulated exchange. So that would have a different resolution process that I'm not as familiar with, because I'm not as in tune with the exchange operations. But yeah, there's a few different mechanisms.
What about you, Ultra? Like how does the mechanics and the system for resolution work at Kalshi? I don't know if you wanna give some context on this.
Yeah, for resolution our side, well, Cash itself is a fully regulated and centralized exchange, right? So we have a markets team, well, composed of like the top debaters from Ivy Leagues in the US, that both list the market by drafting contracts with all resolution data or resolution sources already baked in. So users before trading can kind of understand how and where the source of data will be taken for resolution. And then at the time of the resolution, all these sources will be looked at from our markets team or with some automations and settled based on those. So there's essentially clarity for traders before they enter a market on how exactly a market will be resolved in the future. On the previous question of like permissionless markets and so on, obviously it's having user created markets is the holy grail, which a lot of developers and teams have tried to achieve, but it feels like overall tech is not mature enough to kind of allow for those automatic settlement processes or rule creation. And then, as Primo said, liquidity is definitely a big issue, as well as discoverability and so on that comes with so many markets being created and spun up. But the overall goal, as long as adoption grows for prediction markets, which I think we all believe it will, the end goal will be every single person will be able to trade what they are experts at, and overall the amount of markets will grow over time.
Do you see even in those markets, it's very hard to get, even if they are permission markets. How do you know that when you're gonna launch these markets, they have enough liquidity? Is there a way or a mechanism that you guys use internally to assess the capacity to build liquidity in the market before you decide to open it?
Not necessarily. I think we have some general guidelines on how to assess if a market will be debated enough to be interesting to be traded, right? Prediction markets work best when two or more parties believe that there's going to be different outcomes, right? If everybody agrees, it's either convergence to the verdict or low liquidity and volume. So we have some guidelines on that side of things, but then it's really up to the members of the exchange to kind of provide liquidity and trade what they're interested in.
Prima, so you also wanted to elaborate on this?
Yeah, I was just going to say, back to the comment on the markets team being smart people. It's a hard job. You have to know a lot, and writing rules is hard. One of the most common comments that people would say to me when I tell them what my job is, like, "Oh, it would be cool to like write the markets." I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think you know how hard that job is because you got to know a lot. You got to stay up with the news, like, and then you got to write rules that are super precise. Like, yeah, it's hard. You have to be very smart and have like a lot of knowledge. And yeah, I respect those people a lot, to be honest.
To be somewhere between like a journalist and a lawyer and something else maybe as well. Some
Like a
kind of
political science
market maker or something.
Yeah.
Which one is your favorite market from all of the listings that you guys have? Is there anyone in particular that you think that was like really cool that you managed to pull it off?
My favorite was the shutdown one for this last the last US shutdown. I wish our government didn't shut down, but it did. And I was affected. My wife is a government employee, so she was home and we just didn't know when she was going back to work. So it was nice having a market where I can like kind of check in and see on when is the expected shutdown to end. And I got a little lucky on this one. I took a picture of my kid. I have a 7-month-old baby, and he's in daycare. So I took a picture of him holding my phone. It's the only screen time he gets at this point in life, and he was holding my phone, and we predicted the exact date that it hit. So that was my favorite market. My kid went a little viral, and I'm excited to share this with him at some point in his life. Although maybe he won't care. I don't know. We'll see.
That's super cool. It's crazy that you managed to get the exact date that it would happen.
Yeah. It was like, to be honest, a little lucky. Like there was just so much up and down, but like that, I think a lot of people knew that it was going to be a while, just because there's not much progress being made. But yeah, it was pretty wild. They're accurate, like Frederick's report said.
Yeah, no, that's just crazy to start seeing. Again, like I said, for me, before we started to work with this report, I personally would have not thought that like it was that accurate. So I don't know, Ultra, if you also have maybe a story from your side on something similar, maybe a market that you're a big fan of or surprised of the result.
Yeah, nothing too specific on a market. I think what something that is really fun that sometimes I do with my friends personally is we do prediction nights and we just go over markets, just debate at the table, why an outcome would happen or not, and just a lot of fun with a couple of drinks. So that's my story in prediction markets. It's actually very enjoyable in company. Yeah.
I wanted actually to ask you something else, especially considering the fact that your role is now to lead crypto growth, and Kalshi, from at least my understanding as a company, it started a little bit more as a CFTC regulated exchange for years in the US, and it's just recently that you have decided to also start it like into the on-chain component. And I imagine as you're leading that, it would be great if you could give us a little bit of like an insight into why the transition and like where do you see the value of also like taking this on chain?
Yeah, I think crypto growth can mean multiple things. Yes, there's the tech side, but also the cultural side. I think crypto traders or trading on crypto rails and the culture is something that we definitely want to tap into and grow in as a sector. And then on the tech side of things, as I mentioned, we wanted to make Kalshi much more of a liquidity layer to be built on top of. I believe that a lot of the future of prediction markets, because liquidity cannot be solved for, will be essentially third-party front ends specializing in a vertical or niche, repurposing or redistributing markets from a major broker. And we need good tools to enable this, right? We need tools to enable exploration of these third-party front ends, as well as innovation on the DeFi side. So tokenized predictions make a lot of sense and kind of tick all the boxes in this category.
Yeah, and I guess like on the kind of like opposite side, then Primo, like you Polymarket as a company started more as a digital asset native firm, and then recently you guys have actually gotten like all the regulatory approval to enter in the US, correct? So maybe to, interesting how Ultra looks at it also like as a cultural, strategy to tap into a different customer segment. Maybe if you could elaborate also on how a Polymarket now entering the US enables you to access, I guess, different trading groups, and what are the expectations that you guys have on that side.
Yeah, I mean, we've always wanted to be in the US. That just wasn't, and it was before my time, but it wasn't always possible, and now it is. And we're very excited. And I mean, we're a US company. We're based in New York City, and yeah, we want to offer these, services to US, and especially since we have a lot of, global markets, but also US markets. So yeah, we want to not only tap into traders, but also more of like the users. Like most, like in my head, there's two sets of users. There's traders, and in traders, there's retail, there's institutional, but then there's also just people who consume the news. And that would be, like my 7-year-old dad will never trade anything, but he like reads the news like a maniac. So like he's a user as well. So I think coming to US will allow us to open the trading too, but also opens for, it gives you like a little more legitimacy. We're regulated, and then we'll be able to like tap in even more into like the news kind of side of things. So I'm,
This that is super interesting. So, like a person that is only consuming the data and let's say looking at the accuracy of the results, it's still a person of interest for you. So it's still a user. Is there any way that you can actually have a customer relationship with this person, or is this just like a byproduct where you look at it more as like a marketing strategy?
yeah, I mean, they're a customer in a way, like they're a consumer, and we get a lot of website traffic, and most of it is not traders. And I mean, we want to have our markets make a more informed world and a more, predictive, accurate world. So that's like a service that we provide that traders power. So like we care about those people. Like they're consumers, like people. I don't know. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and there's just a lot of people who will pull up Polymarket and prediction markets to like make sense of, when are these Epstein files going to be released, kind of thing, or when
Yeah.
are we
So,
going to sell these gold cards? Like I think there's a lot of insights that can be taken, and we care about those people, and it's like a real world use of trading. You know what I mean? Like people trade perps, 40x long Bitcoin on, name your perp dex of choice, but there's not much, my neighbor doesn't care about that. My neighbor cares about the election, or, what's going to happen with FEMA or whatever. Like there's like something useful out of the trading. You know what I mean?
This
absolutely.
is actually quite analogous to how Dune works, where people make dashboards, and then those dashboards are, for the most part public, and anybody can go and look at it. Even of course, it's sort of what's underneath is SQL and data analysis. It kind of works in a similar way, where I think ultimately, you could say, oh, maybe you should like monetize it or think about it differently. But I think it is a huge feature to have a product that so many people can see and do useful things with, and then you can engage deeper. In Dune case, build your own analysis, fork things, get deeper involved if you want to. And for us, that's been a great model where you get a lot of organic distribution and engagement and stories and people engaging and looking at this. And of course, that's going to be many x bigger than who actually writes the analysis. And then, but nevertheless, that helps people understand also in the Dune world, what are people looking at, what are the interesting dashboards. It gives meta signal, even if you don't create the analysis per se. So I think in a similar way, you can start to see, okay, what things are people looking at. Maybe we should try to drive more volumes to markets that are getting a lot of use but doesn't have a lot of volume or stuff like that, right? And maybe you manage to find new betters or sort of people putting their money on the line. I think there's one interesting data point in the report also on, or a chart on, the bigger the volume, the the more precise the bet or the accuracy of the market, right? Which is not surprising, but it tells you the power of reaching, a big audience or a big volume. Then that it is actually aggregates more knowledge and is proven, as you can see in the data, to make it more correct. So having this wide distribution definitely should help with that.
On the back of that, how do we, or how does this industry manage to establish themselves and create that point of trust? Because I think, when you're talking with like, data scientists such as, yourself, that have actually gone and look at the data, the trusting it is much easier. But for the, like you said, like for your dad that is 70 and he just wants to get access to information that he can take decisions on, what are the drivers for this industry and for prediction markets to establish themselves as a trusted, legitimate source of information? I don't know, maybe who wants to take, maybe Ultra, you want to chime in?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think that prediction markets currently are the best truth machine, or decentralized oracle for correct data that has ever existed. And just building a track record of always being right, or most time has to be so in Bayer's course. It builds that trust, right? People will always turn to prediction market platforms to see what will happen on things they're interested in, which can be anything. I had friends that just wanted to know when Spotify Wrapped would come up, and just went on Kalshi and looked it up, and it actually worked. So just track records are what matter, and obviously volume and cultural acceptance.
If I would want to like get an insight on this track record, where should I go? Like, so if like, like, is there a simple kind of like landing page where I could see all the past predictions compared to reality, kind of like, so that for people to like easily say, okay, in fact, in the last 18 months, this thing has been more accurate than the rest. When you look at the report that we put out, we actually compare the results of Polymarkets and Kalshi with the alternative models, and we saw the accuracy to be better. But I don't know if actually you yourself are publishing information in such a format so that people actually see the same that we found.
There's a Dune dashboard that someone for Polymarket accuracy that's gotten a lot of views, and we've integrated into our site, polymarket.com/accuracy. And it was actually mentioned on the All In podcast. They talked about this accuracy research, which, like, as a data person, I just liked that some dude in New York just made this dashboard on Dune. That's like a very cool part of Dune, and having, data on chain and easily accessible. You can write a select from, then you can make something like that. And someone did that for Dune, and then they were featured on All In. Like, it's a huge platform that gets millions of views. That's really cool, to be honest.
For sure, I concur. Also, to your initial question, I think you already have strong evidence in the data, and then ultimately I do think building trust just often takes time. You will have early adopters, people that are curious and poke around and do look at the data, and then you will have just it takes time to build credibility, and so ultimately just keep having markets and more stories like talking about the accuracy. And I think the election probably was really like a big win for prediction markets and sort of shifted the narrative or consciousness around these things in a big way. But still, ultimately, I think going from reading the news or reading expert opinions to just looking at sort of markets, I think is gonna take a while, no matter what. But I think the usability is really there, though. Like you asked earlier, like, what are your favorite markets? And I was thinking about just the fact that you can go in and see, the next rent decision or like interest rate decision, right? And see like a very clean statistical sort of breakdown of that is actually super useful, versus historically you need to like read someone that like quoted some economist, or you can go in and look at like, oh, the diff between like the 5-year interest and the 10-year interest or something. Like, it's quite complicated, whereas here you actually have some of these like questions that matters a lot to some people on their mortgage or like things like that, where you can just read it in a cleaner way on, back to the point of an open site as well, right? Where you don't need to like have a Bloomberg subscription or like Bloomberg terminal or anything fancy and like really know your way around how to reason about this. It's such like derived into like very clean sort of yes or no answers, and I think that's powerful also for letting more people understand what's going on and start to trust it.
So it's gonna take time. So I guess then looking ahead, if we fast forward, let's say 5 years, what does success look like for the prediction markets industry? Primo, go for it. I see you want to
No,
answer.
I was just like I'm not trying to hug the mic. I wanted Ultra to get a chance to go first. I think there's a lot of different directions. One is changing media, and I actually think about this 5-year time frame more, because now that I have a kid, like this kid in theory is going to be with me for like 18 plus years. That's a long ass time. So like 5 years, I couldn't think in 5-year increments ever before in my life, and now I think about that like more long term thinking, not just like, especially right now, like, and I'm sure Ultra can attest, like it is wild right now. Like it's every day you're just like thinking of how to, survive the day and how to keep building for the day. But like where prediction markets and where we're going are really going to change things. I think there's a few different angles. There's like the media angle, just having more informed news. I think there's a finance angle. So I think we talked off camera about how you run, institutional money, and you're not in the prediction market game yet. But I think at some point, like that's going to happen probably very soon. If not, some people are already doing it already. So I think there's like a financialization aspect, and I do think there's like a culture aspect. Like we do some culture markets that are like fun. So like, is the Diplo 5K market, like that's kind of fun. So I think there's a culture aspect, and like we were both in South Park. It was on Jimmy Kimmel. So like I think it's media, fun, and like institutional. It really depends on the market, to be honest. Like earnings markets like aren't as fun but that's like institutional. So I think it really depends on the market, but I think there's a few different avenues, and I'm kind of excited. It's a wild ride, and I can't imagine to be honest, the early ones, the people who are doing Augur and that have been around for a while, I have a lot of respect for those. And the people that are early in Polymarket and people early in Kalshi, I have a lot of respect for people who were like doing this before it was cool. Now it's cool and it's everywhere and that's awesome. But like, I have a lot of respect for the people who were like early when like they were working in Shane's apartment. I'm sure Kalshi has similar stuff where like you're hustling and no one cares. And now people care, and it's like changing the world. It's wild.
What about you, Ultra? Where's
Yeah,
success in 5 years?
I agreed on everything Primo said. I think in 5 years, the outcome is just going to be the most boring one, where the prediction markets stop being a novelty, it just start being part of normal life and how people stay informed. I think that's the goal and where prediction markets are going. This is just the beginning of an actual acceptance across multiple cultures of just staying informed with these decentralized oracles that are prediction markets.
Frederick, you wanna complement anything from your side?
I think in general, it's interesting if sort of more corners of the economy can get more signal and sort of hedge and understand various things. I think ultimately, it's quite concentrated, or like they're limited what you can bet on with stocks or some instruments. It's somewhat of a contained world, and I think an interesting question is, take stuff like Uniswap, where you can like price way more assets in bootstrap liquidity, and like you don't need like a big market maker to price more things, and sort of if there's a similar dynamic that can happen here where, over time, I know right now it's like quite editorial and it's hard to find the right markets that has enough liquidity and whatnot, but whether there sort of is this big longer tail of actors or like cases that you can hedge on or learn from, and in particular, maybe if this is something AIs can also do to make better decisions, it could be quite interesting. I think a general sort of mental model I have with crypto is I think there's like a lot of fancy financial tooling that's been built, and sometimes that is like too complicated for humans because there's overhead in using the products. But as you have like AI and intelligence becoming cheaper, then they might want to actually trade more, hedge and do more sophisticated stuff on a way higher frequency than sort of humans with their limited sort of capacity would have. So I think that's an interesting question of whether AIs can sort of create more markets and sort of price more long tail of outcomes in the world. That would be super interesting.
Yeah, no, indeed. I mean, actually, I think I'm personally a little on that camp where I would hope to see that these industry evolves to not only have higher accuracy for prediction outcomes that we have today, but it can like unlock a tail that enables new use cases. I for example wonder if at some point prediction markets become a tool for like high scale insurance where risk can be understood, measured, and then paid. And we could maybe even see the future of like on-chain global insurance being developed in prediction markets instead of like an insurance-based industry. That's one of the use cases that I've always thought, okay, this is maybe exciting because it could enable something that has like real use and value coming out of it, which is interesting. Well, in any case, just to as closing remarks, it would be great if each of you can just give some final thoughts, maybe some alpha on what's coming on at each of the companies that you represent. So if you can, just give some closing remarks and tell us what's coming next, what's exciting. That would be great. We can start with Ultra. Ultra, what's exciting at Kalshi? What's coming next? Next, what can you share?
What's exciting? Many things. So I think many things I cannot discuss, but 2026 is going to start really, really well. Something else that we've announced today, but will be a big part of Kalshi, is Kalshi Research, where any researcher can submit their own research using prediction market data, and we co-publish and co-author with them. We're also going to have a big event in March in New York for anybody interested in data that wants to attend. But on the product side, yes, many things I cannot say that I think will really change the game for prediction markets.
Well, we're looking forward to it. What about Primo? Anything exciting? Can you disclose anything?
Yeah, I mean, our launch in the US for those who are here, that will be like, we're in private beta now. We're very excited to launch that publicly at some point, and we've been heads down that. Yeah, I mean, everyone's cooking stuff in the background that maybe we don't want to disclose. I think the builders program, people can just go to builders.polymarket.com and follow our builders accounts. We're updating that program. We're investing more in that program and supporting more builders. So I would say those are the two big things that are like public at this moment. It'll be a wild year because there's Super Bowl, there's Olympics, there's midterms. Like in the US, it's going to be a wild year.
The more crazy things happen in the world, the better for you guys.
They're big events. These are big events, I would say.
These are big events. Okay, that's great. What about you, Frederick? Anything interesting that you want to share about the future of Dune for 2026?
Yeah, so we definitely try to have good coverage of prediction markets, and there are more players also stepping on the scene. So you can track it all on Dune. We've been working with Kalshi to get their data on Dune in a good way, so everybody can analyze and see what's going on. In general, for Dune, we're building more and more like platform features, so you can bring your own DBT, transform more data, sort of access the data from more environments, more tools, and we try to just help people work with really nice data. So we invest a lot in the data sets, and then more tools and connectors to connect this to different workflows and worlds beyond just Dune.com. Yeah, that's what we're up to.
I've been using your Trino connector to get it into Hex. We use Hex for like internal scripts and dashboards, and I actually was just using it this morning. I'm a big fan because it's in our environment, and then I'm happy to pay for the query credits and whatnot. But it's nice having our own dashboard environment. Yeah.
We definitely
Beautiful.
all fans of Dune. Thank you very much, Frederick. That's fantastic. Well, guys, thank you very
Too
much
kind.
for all the insights with us today. It's been great. For anybody out there, Kirok Research, we continue to publish, in-depth articles about the different topics in the industry. In 2025, we published articles about on-chain asset management, the evolution of stable coins, how Bitcoin treasury companies have evolved over the year, prediction markets, and so on. 2026 will continue with that trend. If you're interested to stay up to date with the latest research coming out of Kirok and its close partners, feel free to subscribe in our website, kirok.com. And for all of you guys, thank you very much for your time, and Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.